Top 7 Most Famous Legendary Kings. Number 1. Alexander the Great. Alexander the Great was a Macedonian king. During his 13-year reign, Alexander created one of the largest empires of the ancient world, stretching from Greece to northwestern India in a remarkably short period of time. Alexander built many new cities in the lands he conquered, including Alexandria in Egypt. He went on to conquer the lands of the Persian Empire, establishing more cities, and continued his conquest through Asia, until he reached the shores of the Ganga River in India. At this point, his army refused to continue further into India, exhausted and discouraged by heavy rains. Alexander was 32 when he died. When Alexander was a teenager, his father hired Aristotle to be his private tutor. Alexander developed a love of science, particularly of medicine and botany. Alexander included botanists and scientists in his army to study the lands he conquered. He developed a lifelong love of reading and music. Number 2. Charlemagne. Charlemagne, or Charles the Great, was the king of the Franks from 768, king of the Lombards from 774, and the first emperor of the Romans from 800. Charlemagne succeeded in uniting the majority of Western and Central Europe and was the first recognized emperor to rule from Western Europe after the fall of the Western Roman Empire around 3 centuries earlier. The expanded Frankish state that Charlemagne founded was the Carolingian Empire. Above all else, Charlemagne was a warrior king. He led his armies on yearly campaigns as a matter of course. His kingdom now extended through the region of modern-day France, northern Spain, northern Italy, and modern-day Germany except for Saxony in the north. Charlemagne has been called the father of Europe as he united most of Western Europe, as well as uniting parts of Europe that had never been under Frankish or Roman rule. Number 3. Genghis Khan. Genghis Khan was the founder of the Mongol Empire, the largest land-based empire the world has ever seen. He was a Mongolian warrior ruler, and one of the most famous conquerors of history. He brought all the nomadic tribes of Mongolia under the rule of himself and his family in a rigidly disciplined military state. Given the size of his army, the levels of discipline and training he instilled were incredible. At the time of his death, Genghis Khan had conquered the landmass extending from Beijing to the Caspian Sea, and his generals had raided Persia and Russia. His successors would extend their power over the whole of China, Persia, and most of Russia. Number 4. King Henry VIII. Henry VIII is one of the most written about kings in English history. Notable events during his reign included the break with Rome and the subsequent establishment of the independent Church of England, dissolution of the monasteries, establishment of the Royal Navy, and the Union of England and Wales. He was also involved in the construction and improvement of several buildings, including King's College, Cambridge, Christ Church, Oxford, Hampton Court Palace, Nonsuch Palace, and Westminster Abbey. His sponsorship of education and of the arts contributed to the English Renaissance, which continued under the reign of his daughter, Elizabeth I. Henry's reign fostered the later British imperial expansion, which spread the English language, ideas of fair play, and eventually of human rights, of democracy, and of religious liberty that still live on in the nations of the Commonwealth and in the United States. He started out as a good monarch, sensible, reasonable, and pleasant, but later he became strong-willed and bullish. He handed out executions to anyone who stood in his way. Like him or loathe him, Henry VIII created modern England. Number 5. King Louis XI. Louis XI, called the Spider King, was the son of King Charles VII of France. At the time of the 100 Years' War, the English held northern France, including the city of Paris. He suppressed baronial power, made peace with England, and reorganized French royal authority. The prosperity of France and the authority of the crown were his major concerns. In his early years, Louis had seen very little of his father, and when he did, his father snubbed and ignored him. From his teens, the resentful Dauphin began to assert himself. He was involved in an unsuccessful conspiracy against his father, and he frequently acted against his father's policies. When his father lost all patience and led an army to the Dauphin in 1456, Louis fled to Burgundy and took refuge with Duke Philip. King Charles remarked sourly that Philip was feeding the fox who would eat his hens. It was a prophetic insight. When Louis XI died aged 60 in 1483, he had taken control of Burgundy, mastered the other lords, and turned France from a feudal realm into the most powerful nation-state in Europe. Once he told a group of rebels, "I am France." He was, however, a secretive, reclusive man, and few mourned his death. Number 6. Pharaoh Thoughtmosa III. Thoughtmosa III was one of the greatest pharaohs who transformed Egypt into an international superpower. He was a skilled warrior who brought the Egyptian empire to the zenith of its power by establishing an empire stretching from the Euphrates River in Mesopotamia, through Syria and the Levant, down through Nubia to the Fifth Cataract of the Nile. Widely considered a military genius by historians, Thothmosa III conducted at least 16 campaigns in 20 years. He was an active expansionist ruler, sometimes called Egypt's greatest conqueror or the Napoleon of Egypt. He is recorded to have captured 350 cities during his rule. Thothmosa III was able to conquer such a large number of lands because of revolutionary developments in military technology. Thothmosa III's consideration for his enemies in defeat and gentle treatment of them made him respected far beyond the boundaries of his country. Number 7. Attila the Hun, 406 to 453 AD. Attila the King of Huns was a terrifying leader of the nomadic Hun tribe in the 5th century CE. Notorious amongst Romans for his near-perfect record in winning battles, his name alone could strike fear into the heart of Rome's citizens. Even today, Attila the Hun is still recognized as one of the most brutal and tyrannical rulers of all time. An outstanding commander and a persistent negotiator, Attila inherited an empire that probably stretched from the Alps and the Baltic in the west to somewhere near the Caspian Sea in the east, and expanded it by invading the southern Balkans, Greece, Gaul, and Italy. Attila was a brilliant horseman and military leader, possessed a commanding presence, and held his empire together through the strength of his individual personality. These legendary kings conquered lands, established kingdoms, and created a place in history for themselves. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe to my channel, and don't forget to click on the bell button to get new video updates.